A very good morning to all the participants of this webinar and welcome to DTRTI Lucknow Webinars 2021. In this webinar, we'll be discussing rectification of errors part 2 as part of our bookkeeping and accountancy series. So we are at the present moment in part 2, we are at how do we make the rectification of different types of errors. So in the part 1, we had discussed an illustration where we had discussed certain errors and how we correct them, illustration 1. Now, so far we have discussed the correction of those errors which were affecting only one account or which were affecting more than one account, but for which rectifying entries were not complete journal entries, even if they were affecting more than one account. So we have discussed those errors where journal entries could not be made to make the rectification. Now we shall take up the correction of those errors which are affecting more than one account in such a way that we can make complete journal entries for the rectification purpose. So let us take an example. Machinery has been purchased for 2000 rupees, but it has been entered in the purchases book. Actually, machinery should not be entered in the purchases book because it is an asset purchase. It is not a trading purchase. Unless that machinery is purchased to be sold by any trader of machinery, in which case it will become an entry to be made in the purchases book. But let us assume or let us presume here that this machinery is an asset which has been purchased for 2000 rupees. Now, since it has been entered in the purchase book, the effect of the entry is that the supplier, Ram and Company, his account has been credited by 2000, which is all right. But the debit which we have done in the purchases account is wrong. Actually, the debit should go to the machinery account. So to rectify the error, we'll have to reverse the debit in the purchases account and it has to be transferred to the machinery account. So for this, the correcting entry will be that now we will credit the purchases account and debit the machinery account. And with the help of this journal entry, the rectification would be made. So let us see how the wrong entry was made. The wrong entry was debit to purchases account 2000 and credit to Ram and Company account. Now this is the wrong entry. The correct entry that should have been made actually was machinery account debit and Ram and Company credit. Now what we'll do, we will debit the machinery account and credit the purchases account. So what will happen is that with the help of the credit in the purchases account, we will be squaring off the wrong debit that was done in the purchases account, and by debiting the machinery account, we'll be making the correct debit entry in the correct account. And as far as Ram and Company's credit is concerned, that is already done. So because the machinery has been purchased from Ram and Company, and therefore, as far as the credit to Ram and Company account is concerned, that has been already done here. So now, in essence, what we have is that we have a debit in the machinery account and we have a credit in the Ram and Company account. Now let us take one more example. We received 100 rupees from Kamal Kishore, but we credited it in the account of Krishan Kishore by mistake. So the error is that there is a wrong credit in the account of Krishan Kishore, and the omission of the credit in the account of Kamal Kishore is there. I mean, we should have made this credit in the Kamal Kishore account, but we have not made it. So now, since we have done a credit in the Krishan Kishore account, we need to do a debit in the Krishan Kishore account. So we debit the Krishan Kishore account and we credit the Kamal Kishore account to make the correcting entry. So the rectification is being made here by means of a journal entry which is correcting a wrong entry which was made earlier. The wrong entry which was made earlier was affecting two accounts, and by reversal of that entry or correction of that entry, now we have made a rectification by means of a journal entry. As you can see here, the wrong entry was debit to the cash account and credit to Krishan Kishore account. The correct entry which should have been is the credit debit to cash account, but credit to the Kamal Kishore account, because this was rupees 100 rupees from received from Kamal Kishore, not from Krishan Kishore. And therefore rectifying entry is that we transfer the debit to Krishan Kishore by debiting Krishan Kishore account and crediting the Kamal Kishore account. Let us take one more example. An old machinery has been sold for 1,000 rupees, and but the sale has been entered in the sales book by mistake. By this entry, the account of the buyer has been correctly debited 5,000 rupees, but the credit which is going into the sales book should have gone to the machinery account. Now, sales account has been credited by mistake here. So we have to correct this error, and therefore we make the rectifying entry. So let us see how the rectifying entry is being made. The wrong entry is buyer's account debit and sales account credit, because the sales account should not have been credited here. It is a machinery account which should have been credited. So correct entry is buyer's account debit and machinery account credit. So therefore, to transfer the credit from sales to machinery, we debit the sales account and we credit the machinery account, thereby transferring the credit from sales account to machinery account. Now let us look at illustration 2. So some errors have been identified in the books of Ram Prasad and Sons. So we have to give the necessary entries to correct these errors. Now rupees 500 was paid for furniture which was purchased, and it has been charged to ordinary purchases account. Now these are all examples where we are going to make the journal entry in form of the rectifying entry. So 500 rupees were paid for furniture purchased has been charged to ordinary purchases account. We need to transfer this debit from the purchases account to the furniture account. Therefore, we credit the purchase account and debit the furniture account. Correction of wrong debit to purchase account for furniture purchase. That will be the explanation that will be mentioned here in journal entry. The second one is the repairs made were debited to building account for 50 rupees. Actually, these were repairs and should have been debited to repair account rather than debiting to building account, because it's not a capital expenditure. So repair account needs to be debited. So we debit the repair account and we credit the building account, thereby cancelling out the earlier debit that was done to the building account. The third one is an amount of rupees 100 was withdrawn by the proprietor for personal use, but it was debited to trade expenses account by mistake. So therefore, we have to remove this debit from trade expenses account and put it in the withdrawal of the buyer or drawings account. So the trade expense account needs to be credited. As we can see here, trade expense account has been credited and drawings account is debited. Now the next one is that 100 rupees which was paid for rent, it was debited to landlord's account. Now it should have been debited to rent account, not to landlord's account, because it was a rent which was paid. So actually the entry which was made was perhaps a cash account credit or bank account credit and landlord account debit. So since the money has been paid to landlord, no doubt, but it is on account of rent. So therefore we need to debit the rent account here. So therefore cancelling the wrong entry, to cancel the wrong entry or to rectify the wrong entry rather, that would have been a better word. We need to cancel the debit that has gone into landlord's account. So we credit the landlord's account and debit the rent account. As you can see here, the landlord's personal account is now credited, thereby squaring off the earlier wrong entry, and the rent account has been debited. Of course, the credit has already been made in the cash account. Now salary 125 rupees is paid to a clerk due to that clerk, but it has been debited to his personal account. Salary which was due to a clerk was paid, but instead of debiting the salary account, was debited to the clerk's personal account. So therefore we need to debit this to the salary account, and therefore we debit the salary account and we cancel the debit that was made to clerk's personal account by crediting the clerk's personal account here. Of course, in this case, the cash account has already been credited, or the bank account has been credited if the money has been paid by check. Now, 100 rupees which was received from Shah and Company has been wrongly entered as being received from Shaw and Company. So by mistake, instead of the entry going to Shah and Company, the entry has gone to Shaw and Company. Now Shah and Company account has been credited, has not been credited, it needs to be credited. So we credit Shah and Company and debit Shaw and Company to cancel out the earlier credit given to Shaw and Company, which was given by mistake. So as you can see here, the Shaw and Company account has been debited and Shah and Company account has been credited. Similarly, as we can see here, that typewriter has been purchased and it has been debited to office expenses account, and so we need to credit the office expenses account to remove it from there and the typewriter account, because typewriter is an asset that has been purchased here. So we are debiting typewriter account and crediting the office expenses account to cancel out the earlier wrong entry that was made in the office expenses account. Now let us look at another illustration. Illustration 3. Illustrations is a very good way of revising the material. So let us look at illustration 3. A purchase of goods has been made from Ram amounting to rupees 150 and it has been wrongly entered through the sales book. Instead of taking it through the purchase book, it has been taken through the sales book, which means that although it is a purchase, but it should have been entered in the purchase account or purchase book, or it should have been, rather we can say the purchase account should have been debited here, but by mistake the sale account has been debited. Taken through the sales book means we can assume that sale account has been debited in this case. So therefore, we are supposed to give the journal entry to rectify it. So now since it was a purchase, we debit the purchase account. And we credit Ram. We credit Ram because it was a purchase made from Ram. Therefore, we credit Ram. And in this case, we are debiting sales account because in case it has been taken through the sales book or it has been treated as a sales rather than purchase, then it would have been, it is not a clerical mistake. I mean, it has been actually assumed to have been a sale. So if we are assuming that it is a sales, then we would have credited it in the sales account, and therefore we need to debit the sales account rather. We need to debit the sales account to cancel this entry. So therefore, we debit the sales account here. This debit in the sales account is going to correct the credit which has gone earlier into the sales account. On the other hand, as far as credit is concerned, we credit Ram 2 times here because we had earlier debited Ram because we had assumed that it was a sale. So we must have debited Ram by 150 rupees and credited the sales account. The first thing is that to remove the entry in the sales account, we have to make a reverse entry by debiting the sales account and crediting Ram. That would remove the wrong sales entry, and then we make a fresh purchase entry by debiting purchase account and crediting Ram. So in essence, 2 times the entry is being made, and one is the cancellation entry and other is the actual transaction entry. So it could be made in 2 parts also, or otherwise it could be made together also, as it has been shown here. Now second illustration is or second part of illustration 3 is a credit sale of goods amounting to 120 rupees to Ramesh has been wrongly passed through the purchase book. So this time it was a sale which has been passed through the purchase book. So therefore we need to first cancel the purchase and then we need to make a fresh sale entry. So to cancel the purchase, now we credit the purchase account and debit the Ramesh account. Purchase, because earlier when we had put it in the purchase account, put it in the purchase book, In that case, the entry was made as purchase account debit and Ramesh credit. So we rectify that by making a counter entry by crediting the purchase account and debiting Ramesh for 120 rupees. Then we make a fresh entry of crediting sales and debiting Ramesh. So here both entries have been shown together. Together also it can be made so that we can put the entire rectification entry in one place. Of course, the description below will show what is being done here, because here a wrong entry in the purchase book has been made, which was actually a credit sale of goods to Ram. Now let us see the third part. We are in examples, we are seeing that we are having to make double journal entries to make the rectification, because one entry that has been made is totally wrong, and therefore we are having to cancel that journal entry first, and then we are making a fresh entry. Now, third is on 31st of December 2016, goods of the value 300 were returned by Harisan. So there is a goods return and were taken inventory on the same date, but no entry was passed in the books. So here, now goods of the value 300 have been returned by Harisaran. So we need to make that entry of these goods return, which was earlier not made. So therefore, we make a return inward account debit and we credit 37. So this is a simple one, because an entry which was omitted from the books of accounts, that entry is being made here. So it is a simple omission being filled in. Now let's see the next one. An amount of 200 which is due from Mahesh Chand. 200 rupees was due from Mahesh Chand, and it had been written off as a bad debt in the previous year. But this amount was unexpectedly covered and had been posted to the personal account of Mahesh Chand. So here what has been done is that amount has been written off as bad debt, but it was unexpectedly recovered and it was posted to the personal account of Mahesh Chand by mistake, and therefore it has to go into the bad debt account. So this will be a credit to the bad debt account, because we have made an earlier debit in the bad debt account in respect of this debt, and therefore we need to pass a bad debt recovered account credit and debit to Mahesh Chand. Thereby, because this entry has not been made at all, rather a wrong credit was made to Mahesh's personal account, and therefore we remove the credit from Mahesh's personal account by debiting Mahesh's personal account here, and then we transfer the debit by debiting the bad debts recovered account. Then let us look at the next entry. A check for ₹100 was received from Manmohan, and it got dishonored and had been posted to the debit of the sales return account. The check was received from Manmohan was dishonored, and after dishonor it had been posted to the debit of the sales returns account, whereas actually it should have been posted to the credit of the sales returns account. Therefore, now we credit the sales returns account and we debit Manmohan we are debiting Manmohan because actually the debit has to be given to Manmohan because we had sold something to him, but he has returned it to us, and therefore we need to debit him. We need to debit him now because the check which was received from Mr. Manmohan was dishonored. Now, when we had received the check from him, at that time we had credited him, and debited our cash account or our bank account when we received the money from him. But here, but actually what we had done was that we had posted it to the debit of the sales return account, and actually we should have posted to the credit of the sales return account. When we received the check from Manmohan, what we did was that we debited the sales account, and it has been posted to the debit of the sales returns account, and we debited the sales return account, and we were supposed to actually credit the sales return account. So the check was received. When we received the check, we posted it on the debit side of the sales return account, and perhaps we credited Manmohan with that, and therefore we are now cancelling that entry by making a debit in the Manmohan's account and crediting the sales return account. To make the correction. Correction of wrong debit to sales return account for dishonor of check which was received from Manmohan. Now let us understand this entry. Now let us say that we make a sales to Manmohan. When we make a sales to Manmohan, he gives us a check of 100 rupees. So what we do is that we credit the sales account and we debit the bank account, first of all, for receipt of check. Because it is not a credit sale, but it's a cash sale. We have received the check from Mr. Manmohan. Now, it could be both. I mean, it could be a credit sale as well as cash sale. So let us consider both the situations. Let us say that it is a cash sale and we received a check from Mr. Manmohan, and when we sold something to him. So when we are selling something to him and we are receiving a check, we are debiting our bank account and crediting the sales. Now what happens is that check gets dishonored. Now when that check gets dishonored, what we are supposed to do is that we are supposed to debit Manmohan again, because the check is getting dishonored. So in that case, we are supposed to debit Manmohan for in respect of that dishonor of the check. And therefore, but what we are doing is that instead of debiting Manmohan, we are debiting sales return. So to cancel the debit in the sales return account, we'll credit the sales return and debit Manmohan where the debit should have actually gone. So that is why we are making this entry here that we are debiting Manmohan, and where actually the entry should have been debit entry should have actually gone, and sales return account where the entry has been wrongly debited, it has been removed from there by crediting the sales return account. So we can say that errors which are detected before the preparation of trial balance can be rectified either through rectification statements or through the rectification entries. So where we are making rectification entries, which means the journal entries, we can make the corrections through journal entries, or we can make the corrections through rectification statement also, as we have seen in the above examples. This is a case where errors are detected before the preparation of trial balance. Now, once the trial balance has been prepared, but final accounts are not so far prepared, what do we do and how do we correct those errors at that point of time? Because the final accounts would be prepared after the end of the accounting period. And so far what we have studied are those methods which are appropriate when errors have been located before the end of the accounting period. But after the corrections that we have made, the trial balance should agree. But sometimes what happens is that trial balance is artificially made to agree in spite of the errors by opening a suspense account, because sometimes we are not able to find the reason for the error, but the trial balance is not agreeing. So we pass an entry, and we open a suspense account, and we make a journal entry, and we transfer the error to the suspense account. And by making an entry in the suspense account, we make the trial balance to agree. The debit side with the credit side is made to agree by opening a suspense account and making an entry there. And thereby we put the difference in the trial balance into the suspense account. For example, the suspense account will be debited if the total of the credit column in the trial balance exceeds the total of the debit column. So since credit is exceeding the debit, we'll need to introduce a debit of the difference. So we put that debit in the suspense account, and in case the credit column is less than the debit column, then we credit the suspense account. However, this is just an unreal, artificial making to agree of the suspense of the trial balance. Therefore, it will be necessary to find out the errors, and at a later stage, we need to make entries to correct those errors. In that case, we need to take the entries out of the suspense account and square up the suspense account gradually, and then when we find the reason for the difference in the trial balance. So the rule for the rectifying errors which are detected at this stage after the trial balance has been prepared is simple, that those errors which are for which complete journal entries were not possible in the earlier stage of rectification. As we have seen earlier, before the trial balance is prepared, if complete journal entries were not possible for rectification of those errors, they can now be rectified by way of journal entry with the help of suspense account. Because in this case, complete journal entries were not possible in the earlier stage of rectification, that is, before the trial balance was prepared. Now it can be rectified by way of a journal entry with the help of suspense account, but only in those cases for which complete journal entries were not possible in the earlier stage of the rectification before the trial balance. However, where any error is affecting more than one account in such a way that complete journal was possible for its rectification, if it was detected before the preparation of the trial balance, then after the preparation of trial balance, if it is detected, then it can be rectified in the same way as in the earlier stage, that is, by making a appropriate journal entry which should have been made even before the trial balance, but now also the same journal entry can be made to correct such kinds of errors where complete journal entry was possible earlier also. So we can say that each and every error which is detected at this stage can be corrected only by a complete journal entry, which means to say that those errors which are detected after the preparation of the trial balance can only be corrected by a complete journal entry. Because the errors for which journal entries were not possible beforehand or before the preparation of the trial balance, they will be also rectified by a journal entry, and those errors for which entries were possible will also be rectified in the same way, that is by making a journal entry. So all we have to do now is make a journal entry. Now let us take an example. Supposing the sales book for November 2015 was cost 100 rupees short, which means that total was taken at 100 rupees less. And as a consequence, the trial balance will definitely not agree. So the credit column of the trial balance will be now 100 rupees short than the debit column. And therefore we need to make a suspense account because the credit column is short, and therefore we need to make an additional credit of 100 rupees in the suspense account. So we credit the suspense account in this case. Now, why we are crediting the suspense account? To accommodate the short amount of rupees 100 in the credit side of the trial balance. But to rectify the error, the sales accounts will be credited. When we find the error, to rectify the error, the sale account will be credited. To increase the credit to the correct figure in the sale account. Since now one means the suspense account must be closed, so we will debit the suspense account to close the suspense account, and we credit the sales account once we find out that actually the difference was due to the sales book being cast short. What is happening is that when the trial balance is prepared at that time, we find that credit side is less than the debit side by rupees 100. So we credit the suspense account by rupees 100. Later on, when we find that this 100 rupees short was due to the sales book being cast 100 rupees shorter, that is the total of the sales book being taken 100 rupees shorter, we therefore need to credit the sales account by 100 rupees and debit the suspense account by 100 rupees. By debiting the suspense account, we are squaring off the credit that we had introduced in the suspense account earlier. So the entry would be suspense account debit 100 rupees to sales account 100 rupees. And this entry is a correction of the error of undercasting the sales book for November 2015. And before this, the suspense account entry has been already made. So basically, this is the correction entry for the suspense account entry. Now let us take illustration 4. We are having six situations here where error is there. So we have to give the entries here in both situations without opening a suspense account and by opening a suspense account. So number 1 entry is the sales book has been totaled 100 rupees short. So sales book has been totaled 100 rupees short. When we say suspense account not open, it means that we have found this error beforehand or before the preparation of the trial balance, and we have found that sales book has been totaled 100 rupees short, and therefore we need to make an additional credit in the sales account because sales account was credited short by 100 rupees. So to make a correcting entry, we will credit the sales account by rupees 100 and no double journal entry would be required here. We will simply credit the sale account by 100 and make a statement that by wrong totaling of the sales book rupees 100. So in the second case, let us first see all these cases in the where suspense account is not opened. And when we say suspense account is not opened, it means that we have found the reason for the error even before the trial balance was prepared. And that is why we are not opening any suspense account in these cases. Now let us see the second one. The goods worth rupees 150, which was returned by Green and Company, have not been recorded anywhere. The goods were worth 150 rupees, which were returned by Green and Company, which is therefore a return inward or sales return, which were omitted to be recorded. Since it was omitted to be recorded, it will need to be recorded now, and return inward account will be debited or sales return account will be debited, and Green and Company would be credited for this amount. Now let us see the third one. Goods purchased 250 have been posted to the debit of the supplier Gupta and Company. Now when we purchase goods, we should actually be crediting supplier Gupta and Company and not debiting supplier Gupta and Company. But here what we have done is by mistake we have debited supplier Gupta and Company. So what we'll do is that since by mistake this Gupta and Company has been credited here, and the only wrong entry that is made here is that credit has been made to Gupta and Company. So to remove the wrong, credit, the entry will be made that will debit Gupta and Company account, and after making the debit in the sorry, it has been wrongly debited, so now it has to be credited. Now, actually, Gupta and Company is the supplier and we are the purchaser, so we should actually be crediting him. So therefore, we need to credit him. So we'll make entry on the credit side of 250. We'll credit Gupta and Company by rupees 250, and we write a statement there by errors in posting rupees 500. Because there is only one wrong entry here on only one side. There is no there are no two wrong entries. There is only one wrong entry, and that therefore that wrong entry can be corrected by making a double amount entry. For example, if the account has been debited by 250, this time we will do a double credit in his account of rupees 500 rather than rupees 250. So here what we are doing is that an account which have been debited, instead of being credited, we, while crediting the account, will make the double credit instead of the single credit, because initially we have to cancel that original credit by making a original debit by making a credit, and then we have to make a fresh credit also. Now let's go to the next one. The furniture which was purchased from Gulab and Brothers for ₹1,000 has been entered in the purchase day book. Now this is a furniture which has been purchased, so it should not be entered in the purchase day book because it is a furniture and it should be debited to furniture. So therefore, we debit the furniture account and we credit the purchase account because the amount has been wrongly entered in the purchase account in the debit side, and now therefore we put this amount in the credit side of the purchase account, and thereby we are cancelling that wrong entry in the purchase account. Simultaneously, we are debiting the furniture account also. Now let's see the next one. A discount which was received from Red and Black for ₹15 has not been entered in the discount column of the cash. So therefore, we have to write this discount in the discount column of the cash book, as it has not been so far entered there in the discount column. So therefore, this is a discount received which was not entered. So now we'll enter it by crediting our discount account. And since we have received this discount from Red and Black, so this is an omission entry which is being made now. So now we debit Red and Black for ₹15 and we credit the discount account. Because no entry has been made in respect of this discount that was received. Now let's take the next one. Discount allowed to G. We have allowed this discount to G Mohan, and ₹18 has not been entered in the discount column. The account of G Mohan and Company has, however, been correctly posted, which means that we have already posted G Mohan account, but discount column entry is not there. So we don't need to disturb G Mohan account here because G Mohan account has already been correctly posted. Only entry that needs to be done is in the discount account, and therefore now we'll make a We'll correct the omission in the discount account by making entry in the discount account. And by making the entry in the discount account, will be, because this is a discount that we are giving, we will be debiting the discount account, and we'll make the statement there to omission of entry in the cash book rupees 18. Now these are those situations where suspense account was not open, not required to be opened, because we had found the defects even before the trial balance was prepared. Now supposing in these cases we are not able to find a defect before the trial balance is prepared. So what we do is that when we prepare the trial balance, we find that there is a difference between the debit and the credit side, and to square off the difference, we'll open a suspense account and put the difference into the suspense account. Later on, when we find the reason, then we have to remove that entry from the suspense account and take it to the correct account. So in the first case, for example, there was a undercasting of the sales day book by rupees 100, which means that we had made an entry in the suspense account on the credit side. Now once we have found it, we have to cancel that entry in the suspense account. So we debit the suspense account by rupees 100 and we credit it to the sales account. Now in the second case, since the entry was not non-existent and return inward account entry was not made at all, so there is no suspense account required, because trial balance would have tallied. But now we are making that entry because we found an error later on, and so we make the same entry, same double journal entry, which we would have made if we would have found this thing earlier also. So we debit the return inward account for the return inward and credit union company, because it was earlier unrecorded company. Therefore, now we are recording this entry of the sales return. Now, in C, the suspense account is debited because in Gupta and Company account, there was a debit, wrong debit was done. So we found out later on that in Gupta and Company account, the wrong debit has been done, and Gupta and Company account should have been actually credited. So we credit Gupta and Company by double the amount of the wrong debit, and we debit the suspense account this time, because to remove the or square of the suspense account. Now let us see this C again. In this, goods were purchased rupees 250. They were posted to the debit of the supplier Gupta and Company. So whenever goods are purchased, the supplier should be credited and not debited. So since we have debited supplier Gupta and Company and we have not credited him, there would have been a difference in the trial balance of rupees 500. And when the difference of 500 would have been there in the trial balance, we would have opened a suspense account and we would have put that difference into the suspense account. Now we have found the reason for the difference, and therefore we need to correct the entry, and therefore we need to close the suspense account or square of the suspense account entry, and thereby in respect of this we'll have to credit the Gupta and Company account. So in the suspense account we had actually made this credit earlier. This credit which should have actually gone to Gupta and Company, but actually the debit went to Gupta and Company. So we credited the suspense account by double the amount earlier, because that was the difference. by the difference. So difference was the double of the debit that should have gone to Gupta and Company. So now the credit which we had given, which we had done the suspense account of 500, we'll debit it to square it off and credit Gupta and Company by 500. And that is what we have done here. We have debited suspense account by 500, which is double the amount, and crediting Gupta and Company by 500. Then there is a case where if the debit has gone to the wrong account on the same side of the balance sheet, no need for a suspense account here because trial balance would have tallied. So all we have to do an entry as we normally make, debit to purchase account and credit to the debit to furniture account and credit to the purchase account. So here the discount has not been mentioned and therefore it was omitted from the. Now the discount is being recorded here. So for this also a same journal entry has to be made as would have been made if the error was detected before the trial balance was prepared. So no need for a suspense account here because trial balance would have tallied. However, in the other case, where in part F, where discount account was not debited, but suspense account was debited, as we can see the example here. The discount which was allowed to G. Mohan Company. So G. Mohan Company account was debited, was credited, but in respect of the discount allowed, but the discount column entry was not made. So one side entry was not made, only one side entry was, which means the G. Mohan and Company account was debited but credited, but rupees 18 was not entered in the discount column, which means the discount account was not debited by rupees 18 rupees. So therefore only one entry is being made wrong and therefore trial balance would not have been tallied. And so we would have had to make the entry in the suspense account of a debit entry of 18 rupees. But now that we have discovered that it was due to the discount entry not being made, we'll make a discount account debit now and we make a square of credit in the suspense account of rupees 18. And then of course, when we look at the suspense account, what happens is that initially whatever difference is there in trial balance, that is entered there. And as and when we go on removing the entries from the suspense account or adding the entries, the corresponding credits and debits will be made. So we have to note that the opening balance in the suspense account will be equal to the difference in the trial balance. That is important because the difference in trial balance is being transferred to the suspense account. Now, if in the question that is being asked is not mentioned whether the suspense account has been opened or not, student has to make his own assumption whether the difference was found before or afterwards, and preferably if it is not mentioned, then it should be assumed that no suspense account is there. And if it is not mentioned that if the error is to be corrected after the opening of the trial balance, in that case it has to be assumed that the error is being corrected before the start of the trial balance. So we have to make the correct assumption accordingly in this case. Now with that we come to the end of today's session, in the morning session, and we resume the topic in the evening again with more illustrations and examples.